So degrowth is the idea that we can have an economy that can meet well-being and doesn't depend on GDP growth, but which requires less energy and material use of the economy as a whole. But for the global south, there may still need to be growth in material and energy use in many economic sectors because they can still consume far less than they need and far less than global north countries, who are actually exceeding their fair share of resource use and environmental impacts like carbon emissions. But even in the global south, development should still be oriented toward well-being rather than meeting GDP targets. And there would need to be a transformation away from a model of development that assumes environmentally polluting industrialization and immiserating growth is a prerequisite for achieving prosperity. Why is degrowth in a unique position to overcome the struggle for progress, and how is it different from previous attempts in the last century for redistribution of wealth, like communism? So as we argue in the book, we don't think degrowth should become the movement or slogan to guide progressive struggles. At the same time, we do think that degrowth offers a unique analysis and proposal that should at the very least inform movements going forward. First, it names and directly confronts a relatively new ideology that justifies and maintains the status quo: growth. Without naming this ideology, we can't move beyond it. Second, its holistic perspective combines many threads of critique. We need to be able to be ecologists, anti-capitalists, feminists, anti-racist, and anti-imperialists. Third, degrowth offers a vision grounded in the current reality, a scientific utopianism that is needed today. Most importantly, however, and more to the second part of your question, degrowth can be argued to be the politicization of social metabolism. What we mean by this is that degrowth makes the material base and impacts of our society a political project. It is about choosing, as a society, what kind of industry we want and what we don't want. Collectivist projects of the past century, such as communism in Vietnam, brought many people out of poverty, but often at the cost of creating a political system based on ossified hierarchy, which in turn led to the destruction of collective commons that sustained people. In Vietnam, for example, the Communist Party initially criminalized people's autonomous production of food because it did not fit with the collectivist doctrine. But then they were eventually forced to turn a blind eye to it when the centralized supply chain failed to feed the people. In Cuba, too, the communist government had to eventually support a mixed agroecological farming system, combining cash crop production with sustainable subsistence agriculture based on the commons. In the 21st century, we may see the emergence of a communism that does not compete with capitalism to erode the commons, but which rather bases its economy on the autonomous management of the commons by its people, and which does not sacrifice the environment at the altar of industrialization. I think degrowth communism as a proposal could have a lot to offer in this kind of vision. Many people these days don't believe that they have any political influence or are too occupied with their daily life to engage in politics. What is our strategy on how to talk to them about degrowth? And what is an example of a working class or middle class person practicing degrowth in their daily life? So in my conversations about degrowth with all kinds of people, I've found that people express the most resonance with its critique of alienation. So we are creating an intensely isolating society, and most of us spend a lot of our time working without seeing the fruits of our labor. We are compelled to be productive and efficient, but always feel like we're running on a treadmill, falling behind while the world keeps accelerating. And we feel an intense separation from our surroundings, a concretized world devoid of creativity and organic possibility. The way out of this starts with imagination. As revolutionary thinker Murray Bookchin said, The assumption that what currently exists must necessarily exist is the acid that corrodes all visionary thinking. We have to start not with hope, not even with belief, but with the ability to imagine what is not already there. Degrowth is about desire for something else, something that does not yet exist, but something that would free us from the cage of the present. That desire begins with our everyday lives. That is why in our book we emphasize the importance of nowtopias. So nowtopias are utopian spaces and initiatives that exist in the present. We can find utopia in fragments scattered across our lives. This could be through workplace organizing, which helps us find possibility through solidarity with other workers. It could be through joining a collective garden and realizing that we can work in a non-hierarchical way to solve our problems, or organizing your neighbors against a useless and harmful mega project. There are today nowtopias that are quite well developed and allow whole communities to live differently, to embody post-capitalist values. For example, the Kurdish experiment in Rojava, the Zapatistas, or eco-villages. In our book, we're not arguing that we should somehow scale up these utopias to eventually replace society and the economy as it exists now. This would be wishful thinking, that kind of gradual change. What we argue is that, following philosopher Barbara Muraka, nowtopias are the education of desire, and that in moments of crisis, regular people can look to the experience of utopia in their lives to imagine and build another world, not based on the structures of old. So it's something that everyone can participate in, and that everyone can find a way out of their personal lives through actually encouraging desire for something new.